Folks, we have a big show for you today, and I'm going to be doing a lot of dot connecting with dozens of printouts and articles. First, I want to talk about President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky posing for Vogue, including apparently a photo with a picture of himself behind him. We're going to laugh at some of the funny edits, including this one with Dan Crenshaw, this one with Klaus Schwab, and this one with Biden. But after we joke, I do have a serious story. Controversial Ukrainian oligarch Igor Kolomoisky has been banned from the United States, but recently has also been banned from Ukraine by Zelensky himself. This is interesting because it was actually Kolomoisky's television station that helped make President Zelensky famous in the first place. Even the Kyiv Post, a Ukrainian publication, said last year that journalists confirmed Zelensky's $40 million tie with Kolomoisky in some sort of business relations. We'll read into it, but it's fascinating stuff. Welcome to the live stream of Dream Rare Podcast. Hope you enjoy the show.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on, folks? Hope you're having a beautiful day. This is probably going to be my most detailed live stream. You see right here, I have a bunch of notes, a bunch of articles printed out. I'm really going to do a deep dive on the connections between Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, and Igor Kolomoisky. I know they both have names that can be pronounced and spelled different ways, but Kolomoisky. And I got all just really interesting stuff on it. Before we get into that, because it's a fascinating story that most don't know about, we're just going to start and laugh at some of these funny edits of the Vogue magazine. So, it's this really tough war in Ukraine, but Zelensky, the actor, producer, turned authoritarian leader, has a lot of time to pose for the camera. Let's look. There he is, very fashionable guy. I don't know, what is that, his wife? He's got a picture of himself behind himself, of course. If you're listening on the podcast, I'll just narrate it for you. That's him with Dan Crenshaw. Somebody photoshopped that in. It's pretty funny. There's him getting sniffed by Joe Biden. Also quite humorous. And perhaps my favorite, him, cozying up to Klaus Schwab there. So that's grand old memes. I've met him in person. He's a great guy. So I figure we get our laughs in real quick at some of the Photoshop Vogue stuff before we get into the not so funny story, or more interesting rather. I just thought that was hilarious. And, I have a lot to say about Zelensky, and I think the Vogue magazine is a little distasteful. He's losing a lot of normies with that one. But this is the full story on, I wouldn't say full story. There's always more to know. But here's a little deep dive on Zelensky, how he rose, and Kolomoisky. I got to take it from the top. So a lot of people don't know this, but Zelensky was a comedian and a producer, and I'm just going to read this. This is on Wikipedia. I know Wikipedia is not the most trustworthy news source or anything, but this is pretty to the point and standard of what happened. So it reads, Zelensky then pursued a career in comedy and created the production company Kvartal 95, which produced films, cartoons, and TV shows, including the TV series Servant of the People, in which Zelensky played the role of the Ukrainian president. The series aired from 2015 to 2019 and was immensely popular. A political party bearing the same name as the television show was created in March 2018 by employees of Kvartal 95. So the part that people don't get about this is it's not just that he played the president of Ukraine on television. He founded and created the production studio that created the show, and then that production studio, this is maybe the most bizarre part, then pretty much doubled as a political organization. So the political party bearing the same name as the TV show was created by employees of a production studio that he himself founded. Do you get what I'm saying? How many production studios that make TV shows do you know double as a political organization with the same name as the television show? It's crazy. I mean, it's this psychological operation of the century. It's like, what a great psyop to put yourself on television, convince everyone you're president, and then have your, little production studio double as a political organization. So fascinating stuff. But what does that have to do with Igor Kolomoisky? Well, Kolomoisky was the owner, apparently, of the television station that aired his show, and he was airing it quite frequently during his run for presidency. So probably the largest reason that Zelensky was even able to win the presidency so easily as an actor and a producer wasn't just because he was like a funny comedian guy and people liked him, but he had pretty much asserted himself as the president of the United States and had one of the richest people in Ukraine pumping it on his television station. So interesting stuff. Now let's get into Kolomoisky. I don't know if you guys can see this. Controversial Ukrainian. This is Times of Israel. Banned from the United States. So this guy who had the television network that elevated Zelensky into stardom and presidency is banned from the United States. This is actually from, I don't know if you can see it there, March 2021. So before we get into Kolomoisky now getting banned in Ukraine, we're going to get into Kolomoisky getting banned in United States. So why did he get banned from the U.S.? I'm going to read this. Times of Israel. The United States on Friday banned the entry of controversial Ukrainian billionaire Igor Kolomoisky, accusing him of corruption and undermining democracy. Under U.S. sanctions, laws against corruption, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said Kolomoisky, his wife, and children would not be admitted to the United States. The sanctions specifically related to Kolomoisky's tenure as regional governor in 2014 and 2015, with the State Department saying that he was involved in significant corruption and using his, quote, political influence and official power for personal benefit. Let's keep reading. The United States continues to stand with all Ukrainians whose work drives reforms forward, Blinken said. The Case and Lender Private Bank has been closely watched, by Western bankers who want Ukraine to make fighting corruption a priority. Kolomoisky has been close to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who was elected in 2019 on promises to root out corruption, but earlier benefited from Kolomoisky's media empire, which broadcasted his comedy show. This is Times of Israel saying this, not me. I know they're going to call everything anti-Semitic. It says, Kolomoisky is a Jewish community leader who has been targeted with anti-Semitic harassment. The Ukrainian presidency posted a statement to Facebook on Friday saying Ukraine must overcome a system dominated by oligarchs. I want to just kind of read on a little bit because I don't want to go on. I got a bunch of articles to read. It says, this is from Blinken. I also want to express concern about Kolomoisky's current and ongoing efforts to undermine Ukraine's democratic processes and institutions, which pose a serious threat to the future. The Case and Lender Private Bank. I already read some of that stuff. So anyway, long story short, he's got some corruption with a bank that he's working with. The billionaire backer of the television network that made Zelensky famous and successful has been literally banned from the United States. This has been over a year that he's been banned now. So now recently, this came out just today at 3:28 a.m., also in the Times of Israel. Zelensky said to strip 3 Jewish oligarchs of citizenship, all hold Israeli passports. Once again, folks, I'm not trying to get called an anti-Semite because everybody cries if anything involves Israel Jewish, but this is the Times of Israel, one of the most successful Jewish publications in Israel. They're saying that Zelensky's stripping 3 Jewish oligarchs that all hold Israeli passports. One of them is Igor Kolomoisky. Let's read the article. 3 powerful and prominent Jews in Ukraine appear to have had their citizenship stripped, as their long simmering conflict with President Volodymyr Zelensky has reached a boiling point amid the war with Russia. Last week, Zelensky reportedly either revoked or took steps to revoke the Ukrainian citizenship of 2 of the country's best-known oligarchs, Igor Kolomoisky and Hennady Corbin, as well as that of Vadim Rabinovich, a former tycoon turned opposition lawmaker. Ukrainian citizenship of 2 of the country's best-known oligarchs, Kolomoisky and... Several alternate theories are also circulating, including that Zelensky is purging oligarchs with checkered past in an effort to prove the United States and other Western countries that Ukraine has no tolerance for corruption. What is clear is that 3 of the most influential Jews in Ukraine, including 2 who have been instrumental in funding Jewish infrastructure projects, especially in the Chabad-Lubavitch stronghold of Dnipro, appear no longer to be welcome in their native land. Corbyn has already been denied entrance into Ukraine at the border crossing and has his Ukrainian passport confiscated, according to Ukrainian media reports. So, this is the story. After getting banned in Ukraine, Kolomoisky has now, after getting banned in the United States, Kolomoisky has been banned in Ukraine. I don't know why, but my guess is that, Zelensky is just cozying up to the West, and since the United States banned him, I guess there's been pressures. There's other stories too I'm going to read, but Zelensky has also gone full authoritarian dictator. This is why I put so much, peaceful and just, media pressure on losers like Ted Cruz and Rick Scott, because they're funneling a bunch of money to this corrupt guy. Zelensky banned opposition media. He consolidated state media. He's literally running like an authoritarian communist operation over there, where you're not even allowed to be opposition in the media. He's consolidated all media like a tyrant. He's banned, 11 political parties or something. So it's like, imagine being in Ukraine and just being against what they're doing. You're not allowed. They can actually seize your assets and call you a Russian if you disagree with the Ukrainian narrative. And here's what a lot of people don't realize who are just watching, controlled losers like Mark Levin trying to tell them Ukraine so whatever. It's like Zelensky was not actually popular before the war broke out and before he took all power. He was most likely going to lose the election, and I have articles that prove that. But before we get to that, let's just get into, this is an article, I believe, from Reuters a couple years ago, and the headline is, Comedian faces scrutiny over oligarch ties in Ukraine presidential race. So it's been years known. I mean, look at the Panama Papers, other reports. Everybody knew Ukraine was corrupt. Everybody knew that Zelensky's little, success was running out because he was starting to get really exposed. And all of a sudden this war breaks out and he's like, oh, let me just be a dictator now and ban everybody who disagrees with me. And the West and the media is like, oh my God, this is democracy. It's like, if that's democracy, let's run from that, because that's not democracy. But anyway, so this is Reuters. It says, one of Ukraine's most popular TV channels, 1+1, owned by oligarch Igor Kolomoisky, has given Zelensky a powerful platform in recent months during his meteoric rise to the brink of presidency. On Saturday, a day before Zelensky won the first round of the presidential contest and set up a runoff with the incumbent, 1+1, the television station, filled its schedule with back-to-back shows by the comedian and actor. So as he was winning presidency, you had Igor Kolomoisky's station, or Igor, they pronounce it different ways, just pumping his show out there as people are voting for him. The fact that Zelensky is a major star on a channel has stoked worries among some investors and voters, and accusations from his political opponents that he is in the pocket of Kolomoisky. Both Zelensky and Kolomoisky said that their relationship is strictly professional and centered on the comedian's TV work. Both say no undue influence is being exerted by the oligarch, whose business range from banking to energy to aviation. Kolomoisky said, I'm more of his puppet than he is mine. Zelensky said, it's impossible to influence me. Neither Kolomoisky nor any oligarch will influence me. So you get what I'm saying? They're like, no, we're not influencing each other. Kolomoisky's like, I'm more of his puppet than he is mine. And it's just like the ultimate psychological operation. The television show that was promoted in Ukraine was called Servant of the People, where I watched part of it because it's on YouTube. Zelensky played the role of like a teacher turned like politician, just an everyday teacher who was like fighting corruption. Meanwhile, he was literally getting promoted by the television station in Ukraine in reality by one of the most corrupt people apparently in Ukraine. Do you guys see how television works? I'm not saying everything's like this, but it's like, look guys, I'm this regular guy fighting corruption. That's the TV show saying that. But reality, as people are getting brainwashed by the television being like, oh, Zelensky's this outsider just like me fighting corruption. In reality, he's literally working with a network owned by a billionaire oligarch who is the opposite of, he's so corrupt, he's now been banned from the United States and Ukraine. I don't know, maybe he's secretly a good guy or something if everybody's banning him, but I'm guessing that he probably literally did corruption, but who knows? So that's just a little bit of an insight to what they did there in Ukraine. Now here, I just want to show you guys stuff. This is the Kyiv Post. This is one of, I think, the oldest English-speaking news outlet in Ukraine I looked up. Look at this. It says, journalists confirm Zelensky's $40 million tie, excuse me, sorry, my reading's terrible today. Journalists confirm Zelensky's $40 million tie with Kolomoisky. Let's read this article. It's not Russia. It's not, conspiracy theory. This is a Ukrainian newspaper saying that they've confirmed Zelensky's $40 million tie with Kolomoisky. President Volodymyr Zelensky and his close associates may have been involved in the transfer of $40 million from structures linked to oligarch Igor Kolomoisky, Pandora Papers, a news source of 14 companies that registered and serviced offshore companies, partially confirmed the scheme of transferring funds from the structures of oligarch Igor Kolomoisky to offshore companies that Vladimir Zelensky and his associates, I don't know if they meant Voldemir or he just changed his names, or I don't know, but they said Vladimir, not me. In particular, journalists were able to identify the ultimate offshore owners who could receive the money. These funds could be part of the story and withdrawal of money laundering of Private Bank, which was Igor Kolomoisky's big scandal. So, they're saying they're not working together. It's just a network thing. Kyiv Post says that journalists have confirmed a $40 million tie. I don't know what's going on there, but it's very, very interesting. With that being said, here's a article I believe from like a couple years ago. This is when, or maybe this was from, I wish I had the date. I think it's from like 2021 because it's after Zelensky was in office, but the public started turning against him. So this Al Jazeera, I know Al Jazeera is not the greatest news outlet, but they did a little interview. It says, Pandora's box may have ruined Zelensky's chances for a second term. Network of offshore companies revealed by document leak threaten the Ukrainian president's political future. The article reads, Zelensky said at this time that his total political inexperience would help him uproot the country's omnipresent corruption, but more than 2 years in office yielded no results. Zelensky's ratings have tanked, while his anti-corruption measures were mostly cosmetic and failed to land anyone notorious in jail. On Monday, on her son's laptop, she watched Offshore 95, a video by slidtv.info, a group of Ukrainians' leading investigative reporters that finally opened her eyes. I was duped. We were all duped. I'm never voting for him again, she said. So long story short, and this is confirmed by polling as well, you could look. He was not popular when he started banning political parties. They actually had polling that said that he was very likely to lose the next election. And once the invasion of Ukraine happened by Russia, Zelensky went full dictator, full authoritarian. I mean, the guy is a straight up like authoritarian communist dictator. He's like, ban all the opposition political party, seize assets of everybody who's pro-Russia, take all the media. He's getting rid of like people close to him. He's getting rid of people who helped him win the election. He's going full scorched earth. I mean, I'm not saying Russia's a democracy, but if I had to choose who's the more authoritarian communist dictator out of the two, I would say Zelensky has gone more authoritarian than Putin has. And I don't think Putin's not authoritarian. I think he is. But Zelensky's even worse of a power-hungry psycho. The dude's not, at least Putin is popular in his country. People in Russia actually vote for Putin. You could say what you want, but they like him as a leader. Zelensky was probably going to lose the next election. People are getting sick of his corruption. It's all coming out in the media. And all of a sudden, the dude starts banning and seizing property, assets of people who disagree with him. This is what I want people who've been brainwashed by people like Mark Levin and Dan Crenshaw and all these other like controlled losers in Fox News and stuff. Not everybody. There's some good people there, but I'm just saying, like, it's not like, oh yeah, we need to funnel tens of billions of dollars to Zelensky and we're saving democracy. It's like, dude, imagine being stuck in Ukraine. Some people like Zelensky, some people don't, right? It's a mixed bag, just like in America. Imagine if you live in Ukraine and you have the Western world acting like this guy so amazing. When you, in Ukraine, if you disagree with Zelensky, they can seize your assets. They have rules and laws now that say if you're pro-Russia, we could seize your assets. What does it mean to be pro-Russia? I mean, that's a very vague term. It's like you could be like, oh, I'm not pro-Russia, but I'm against Zelensky and I don't like him. It's like you can't really have that stance anymore. Now you're teetering on the lines of not being safe. So we are actually aiding and abetting a communist dictatorship in Ukraine that is threatening over half of the country, which probably doesn't even like Zelensky. It's not like everybody there loves him. That's this CNN, left-wing NPR and Fox News bipartisan uniparty brainwashing that Ted Cruz and his little skeezy loser friends funneling tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine is so amazing, and anybody who disagrees with is pro-Russia. I'm not even pro-Russia. Someone said don't be contrarian. Dude, no offense, but it's not contrarian. I'm doing the research, okay? I'm not just like sitting there with my mouth open, drooling, watching Fox News. I just did hours worth of research to put my argument together, and I so kindly showed it to you on the screen so you could look at it yourself. There's nothing contrarian about it. The reason I don't support Ukraine is not because I'm pro-Russia or I'm against authoritarianism. I'm against communism and I'm against dictatorships. all of those which Zelensky is, and I think it's a very dangerous country when he can seize the assets of people who are his political enemies when he wasn't even probably going to win the next election in the first place if it was fair. Let's read on. I have a few more articles, and then I'm going to get some of your comments and stuff, and I'll say my final piece. This is The Atlantic from December 2019. It's a huge, long article. I'm not going to read it all, but you can see right here it's called The Betrayal of Volodymyr Zelensky, the surreal story of how a comedian who played the Ukrainian president on TV became the president in real life, then found himself at the center of American political scandal. So this is a crazy, crazy long article, but I'm only going to read 3 paragraphs from it because I find it pretty fascinating, okay? This is The Atlantic from 2019. Even they're admitting this stuff. All right, so it says, 4 days before Zelensky's inauguration, the oligarch Igor Kolomoisky boarded a private jet. The 4th richest man in Ukraine, a figure both accused of ordering contract killings which he denies and hailed for fending off Vladimir Putin, was returning home from self-imposed exile in Israel to the city of Dnipro. The plane descended towards a skyline dominated by Kolomoisky's monumental construction, the Menorah Center, 7 marble and glass buildings in the shape of a candelabra. The city's the largest Jewish community center in the world. So Kolomoisky's building the largest Jewish community center in the world in, I guess, Ukraine, and now he's banned from Ukraine. Fascinating stuff. Before returning to his native city, he told reporters that he will not be the shadow leader of the country in a gray cardinal. It was the sort of denial that suggestively implies everything he ostensibly refutes. Kolomoisky's return was triumphant, but his exit had been ignominious. The government had nationalized the bank he founded after discovering a $5.6 billion hole in its ledgers. Investigators reported that the bank had fraudulently loaned Kolomoisky and his business partners massive sums. Both men deny this. A court in London froze $2 billion worth of his assets. When Kolomoisky departed Ukraine, he said he feared government would invent a criminal case against him. But with the election of Volodymyr Zelensky, Kolomoisky had every reason to believe that his most lucrative days in the country were ahead of him. The Zelensky presidency likely never would have happened without Kolomoisky's not-so-hidden hand. It was Kolomoisky's television network that broadcast Kvartal's programs, including Servant of the People. And it was Kolomoisky's network that touted Zelensky's candidacy in its news coverage. Here's the interesting part. Over the course of the campaign, Zelensky reportedly visited Israel and Switzerland 13 times, places where Kolomoisky happened to have homes. So it's just interesting stuff. Kolomoisky is this massive Jewish advocate. He's building menorah centers. He's getting banned from the U.S., banned from Ukraine, exiled in Israel. The 3 elites that Ukraine's banning from Ukraine are all Jews. Zelensky's, of course, Jewish. So is Ben Stiller and Abe Lincoln and almost everybody involved. But, don't notice that pattern because you'll definitely be called an anti-Semite or something. It's like, imagine if they were all like Saudi Arabian. Dude, right-wingers would be and I'm not saying to blame people. I'm not telling place the blame on random people. I'm just saying if this were all like Saudis, dude, Fox News would be foaming at the mouth, blaming Islam, blaming Muslims, blaming Saudis, but when it's all a different group of people, not only will nobody notice the pattern, but you will be banned into existence because America is a country where, of course, we just cover up that type of stuff and pass speech laws so you can't say it. What's fascinating, too, in the article I forgot to read, the Times of Israel article, they were saying that in Ukraine, dual citizenship is banned. I don't know if it was from politics or from the country, but this idea of having 2 citizenships is looked down upon in Ukraine as it is in Israel. What's crazy about America is there's dozens upon dozens of congresspeople that have dual citizenship, not dual loyalty, but 2 different citizenships. Not only is it legal in America, they will get mad at you if you talk about it. It's not allowed in Israel. It's not allowed in Ukraine. But in America, we're open for anybody. Who cares if you have 2 citizenships? Come serve in the American, come serve in the American system and nobody will be allowed to question you. It's hilarious. And there's nothing hateful about it. I actually agree with Israel and Ukraine. I think if you're going to serve in the government of a country, you should have, 1 citizenship. Dr. Oz is another example. He has a citizenship to, I think, Turkey. Listen, I think Dr. Oz is a nice guy. I'm sure he likes America, but like, it's like when you got a citizenship to Turkey, you're voting in Turkish elections and you're voting in American elections. That's a little sketchy. And, our Congress is filled with dual citizens to Israel, but do not notice or talk about it because you will be banned from events, censored off the internet, and they will call you nasty names for literally just noticing a factual statement. That's just reality. I don't know what else to say. Here's an NPR. I'm going to end with this and then we're going to get some other stuff. Here's an NPR article which I found fascinating. They're starting to admit that Ukraine is corrupt. I mean, this happened July 20th, 2022. NPR, you can see right here, says corruption concerns involving Ukraine are revived as war with Russia drags on. So in 2019, they were like talking about how not just NPR, but all mainstream media was like, Ukraine's corrupt, Ukraine's corrupt. There's this great Oliver Stone documentary. Now it's banned off YouTube. It's like they're trying to cover up the corruption in Ukraine so damn bad. It's ridiculous. But it's like, all that's all in the news. They're talking about the corruption of Zelensky, Kolomoisky, whatever. And then all of a sudden, Russia invades. He turns into a dictator, and everybody just has to like hail him. It's like, hail Zelensky, Ben Stiller, and it's like, it's like a big joke. But let's read this article real quick in NPR because they're talking about Ukraine corruption. This is NPR a week ago. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's dismissal of senior officials is casting an inconvenient light on an issue that the Biden administration has largely ignored. Oh, I wonder why they're ignoring it. Has largely ignored since the outbreak of the war with Russia, Ukraine's history of rampant corruption and shaky governance, as it presses ahead with providing tens of billions of dollars in military, economic, and direct financial support aiding Ukraine and encourages its allies to do the same. The Biden administration is now once again grappling with long-standing worries about Ukraine's sustainability as a recipient of massive infusions of American aid. So here's what I'm going to say real quick before I get back to this article. We're not just giving them military aid. We're giving them economic aid. Folks, economic aid, when our economy is in shambles, we don't have an economy ourselves, but apparently we have tens of billions of dollars to give to this corrupt puppet, loser, actor, dictator, friend of Ted, Sleazy Cruz. Like, what? Our country is so sold out. This is what happens when you're not allowed to talk about dual citizenship. And, this is what happens when you're not allowed to talk about border security. This is what happens when they badmouth nationalism and let you just hate yourself. It's like, it's so bad to like the flag no matter what race you are, but it's so good to hate your own country. No, it's not. What do we have in common in America, right? We don't have race, religion, that's not America anymore, We're all different races. We're all different cultures. At this point, we're all mixed up. So what unites us? What brings us together as a country? Being American. That's the only thing that could bring us together. Being a patriot. That's why my favorite people of every race, religion, and gender are patriots. They're like, listen, I love this country and I appreciate it. It's like, that's why they so badly don't want you to love this country, because that's the only thing at this point that actually unites us, like a semi-loyalty to this flag in this country. So back to the NPR article. Those issues, which date back to decades, were not an insignificant part of former President Trump's first impeachment, had been largely pushed to the back burner in the immediate run-up to Russia's invasion and during the first months of the conflict, as the U.S. and its partners rallied to the Ukraine's defense. So here's NPR, months after, all mainstream media, social media, they're like covering up all this corruption, covering up any dissident to Zelensky, the holy Zelensky fraud, and now they're admitting months later, they're like, we were just so gung-ho about Ukraine. It's like we just forgot about the corruption. We got lost in not all of us got lost in the sauce, dummies. You guys were trying to, not NPR themselves, but, the media, the fact checkers, you guys were trying to really cover up this information, and now you admit it. This is what they do. Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, Big Pharma, mainstream media, they do it with everything, guys. Respect yourself enough to not just believe what they say and realize that there are liars, or there are liars in the game. It's just like with women's menstrual cycles. For months, they're like, oh, it's a conspiracy theory that women's blood cycles have been changed by the vaccine. It's a conspiracy theory. Cover it up. Candace Owens is so bad, blah, blah, blah. And then months later, they're like, oh, now it's a mainstream Time News reporting that that's happening. This is what they always do. They cover up the truth. They push their agenda. Once they get their agenda, they've already given it to hundreds of millions of people and mandated it. Now they go, oh, yeah, maybe you were right. Oh, yeah, maybe Ukraine was corrupt. It's like, dude, I sniffed this one out from the beginning. I don't want to be overly prideful because that's a sin. But I saw almost every right-wing account I follow fall for the Ukraine thing. And I just sat back. I never said this or that. I never made claims I couldn't produce. But I'm like, be careful going headfirst into this actor, producer, guy and acting like he's this big hero. Be very, very careful. Back to the NPR article. But Zelensky's weekend firings of his top prosecutor, intelligence chief, and other senior officials have resurfaced those concerns and may have inadvertently given fresh attention to allegations of high-level corruption in Kyiv made by one outspoken U.S. lawmaker. So I don't want to read this whole article, but NPR is now talking about the corruption of Ukraine and Zelensky because Zelensky's firing his top prosecutor, probably would be firing the attorney general, intelligence chief. It's like he's firing the attorney general, intelligence chief, probably like their CIA guy type, like same sort of thing. And then senior officials, let's just go over everything he's done. He's banned 11 political parties. He's consolidated the media. He's firing everybody around him. He's now banned a guy who he used his network to get into political office, and now he's banning that person from the entire country. It's like, dude, this guy sucks. And I'm not saying just because he banned Kolomoisky, maybe that's the right move, but it's like, Zelensky sucks, dude. He's a total fraud. I've never for a single day fallen for this guy at all. Never for a single day. Because I did my research. I wasn't just hating. I'm not Russian. I mean, Russian people are allowed to exist, but I'm just not Russian. It's not me. It's not my culture. I don't care about Russia, no offense. But it's like, overall, I'm just looking at this thing and everyone's like, oh, Ukraine. And it's like, dude, now this is what happens. Now we got to give tens of billions of dollars. And as we wrap it up, that's the story of Kolomoisky and Zelensky. I don't know what's true. I read you the reports. You can decide for yourself. But I do want to say this really quick. The mainstream narrative, and now they're starting to backtrack it just like they're doing with menstrual cycles. They're backing away from the narrative that they once told you and starting to say what I said months ago. The mainstream narrative has been, we need to fund Ukraine a bunch of money because when we fund Ukraine a bunch of money, we're going to save democracy and we're going to defeat Russia and their authoritarian rule and we're going to defeat Putin. He's trying to take over Europe. This is what they've been telling you for months, okay? Here's what I believe, right? This is just my belief, my opinion. Obviously, these are things that can go either way. I'm not acting like I'm 100% certain, but I believe the more we fund Zelensky, it's the opposite. The longer the war goes on, the longer Ukraine gets decimated, the more Ukrainians die. So I don't believe that, we're going to save a democracy. That's a lie. There is no democracy in Ukraine. You are protecting a dictator now. That's what you're doing. Maybe you can justify it like when you fund rebel groups in the Middle East and they end up, fighting you years later or something. But we're funneling weapons to this dictator, this loser puppet dictator, World Economic Forum stooge, sleazeball. We're giving him weapons, and then mainstream media is reporting that we're not even tracing where the weapons are going. Oh yeah, that won't backfire in the future, right? We're acting like we're fighting Russia, but really, if you look at the map, Russia's now doing more damage to Ukraine because Ukraine didn't want to strike a deal. If the West, and specifically America, wasn't funneling so much money and power to Ukraine, maybe he would have struck a deal months ago. Because say what you want about Putin, I don't think, and who knows, you never know who's telling the truth, but I don't think he wanted the entire country. I think he wanted Donbass, what's the region that he annexed, Crimea, like certain parts that have a lot of Russian people. You got to remember, Ukraine is very divided and not everybody even likes Zelensky in the first place. So there was a lot of violence, a lot of corruption going on. And he said, hey, here's my deal. This is what I want to end the war. And Zelensky basically said, I'm Martin Luther King, I'm Harriet Tubman, I'm Martin Luther, he's just like giving these grandiose actor speeches because we're funneling money, and he didn't want to take a deal. Now there's been God knows how many Ukrainians killed. I don't know that they're even winning the war, and this guy's posing with Vogue so he can get more money from corrupt Democrats and Republicans. I don't believe funneling money to Zelensky is going to stop the war. I think it's escalating the war. I think it's killing Ukrainians. I think it's destroying Ukraine. And I think it's preventing a peace deal to end this total nonsense. I think it's been a complete failure. I think the sanctions backfired and ended up hurting the entire Western world. You know, Russia's not doing as bad as they thought they would do with the sanctions. And you're screwing over Germany. You're screwing over America. You're screwing over most of Europe. Our prices are through the roof, and these guys don't give a shit. So I don't for a second buy into the narrative that funneling money to Zelensky is going to end the war and save democracy. I think you're aiding and abetting communism, authoritarianism, and you're guaranteeing that more Ukrainians die and that the war never ends and that Zelensky never strikes a peace deal. Okay? We're doing this half-assed job of supporting him. We're not giving him a no-fly zone. We're not sending our military. We're not sending our troops. We're just giving him just enough to keep this stupid proxy war going so your bank account gets drained, so Russia decimates Europe, and nothing freaking gets done. There's no, you know, and democracy is certainly not happening. So I don't think this is helping Ukraine. I don't think it's helping America. You could even make the argument that Russia is gaining out of all this. Like, who's really winning? Let's look at, am I winning from this war? No, I'm losing. My bank account's losing. My social media is losing. I'm not winning this war. You know, war's not helping me. Americans are losing. I'm losing. You're losing money. Your gas prices are going up. You know, Germany's getting absolutely like destroyed. You know, Europe is losing. Who's actually gaining? You know what I'm saying? Maybe the US dollar is gaining, but dude, Russia's gaining more land, more territory. Their ruble is at a price that it hasn't been at in a long time. Like I could make the argument that you're actually helping Russia and hurting Ukraine. You know what I'm saying? I don't hate Ukrainians and I don't hate Russians. I think you're killing Russians, killing Ukrainians, destroying Ukraine, and by funneling money to Zelensky, you're actually helping Russia because it's like this stupid war. We're not really fighting Russia. If we wanted to fight Russia, we'd send our military, but we don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? We're such a passive aggressive country. Like, and to Trump's credit, I mean, the guy is what he is, but like, he's not as weak and pathetic as Biden. And I don't see him getting into this conflict because he, like, you know, he's not a pushover and he's not going to like passive aggressively just do some BS like that. Like maybe like sanctions and stuff, but as far as this goofy, like, oh, we're going to fight Russia, but we're not really going to fight Russia. Like, so what are you doing? Ukraine's getting decimated. You know what I'm saying? Someone said not very accurate. Feel free to disagree, but I'm just saying I could make the case that this is helping Russia. I don't know. They're gaining a lot of territory, and you know, Ukraine is losing a lot of people. I don't think tens of thousands of Ukrainians dying is specifically a good thing, but you know, to each their own. That's my take. I told you the end. That's my opinion. The articles were the articles, but that's what I think, and we'll see where this goes. I just also find it fascinating. It's like the COVID-19 pandemic just spontaneously destroys our economy, brings forward mask mandates, vaccine mandates. Keep in mind, in 2019, they were already trying to implement vaccine mandates in America. You can find tweets of mine that literally say vaccine mandates are coming. Vaccine mandates are coming. They tried, thanks to brave patriots in New York, New Jersey. They didn't get it done in 2019. Then in 2020, this spontaneous pandemic arises from not a lab leak or who knows because they didn't let you say it. Spontaneously happens, and all of a sudden now they have justification for vaccine mandates when they were already trying to do it last year. Wow, what a crazy coincidence! They were just trying to do vaccine mandates, and then they got a pandemic where they can do vaccine mandates. Wow, what a crazy coincidence that was just a year later. And then after all the COVID hysteria, it was literally just dying down. Our economy was just starting to ramp up, and we were actually opening to the fullest. And literally, right on cue, Russia invades Ukraine, and then all of a sudden, the gas prices start going up. Wow, that's weird because Pete Buttigieg is like already, against gas and pro, they're already trying to switch us over to electric and they're already shutting down pipelines. Wow, I'm not saying it's planned. I'm just saying, what a coincidence. Wow, it's like right on time. Here's the new crisis, World War III, where gas prices go up, our economy gets decimated again, and we have to funnel money to Zelensky. Whoa, it's like, I mean, I'm not saying it's planned because you're not even allowed to say that because we don't live in a free country with free social media. But in general, it's like, if it's not that, it's the most spontaneous, coincidental thing. It's like me hitting the lottery like a couple days in a row. I'm like, wow, I just keep winning. It's like, are you cheating? I'm like, no, I'm really lucky. I don't, so everything they want to do, they get done. And then you read their books and they're like, yeah, this is going to send the death knell to neoliberalism. And now we can implement exactly, I'm like reading Klaus Schwab's book and it's just like he talks exactly like Karl Marx, but I'm not supposed to notice because this is just all random. It's like, what a joke. But God bless you guys. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. I'm not going to stay too long today. I'm going to keep this under 45 minutes because I want people to watch it. I want people to share it. And it took me a long time to do this research. So hopefully people can learn something and just, hear some articles they've never heard. I want to tell you, because this is like, I'm not quick to be like, oh, God sent me. That like people always do that. They're like, God sent me to run for senator. And then they lose by 50 points. They're like, God anointed me to be here. I'm like, dude, did he though? I mean, but I'm not trying to like claim God, but I do find it funny. Yesterday, I was on live stream and I said that I was going to win against the fact checkers. And I actually won against the fact checkers yesterday, but not even what I was talking about. So I had a new fact checker dilemma that happened after my live stream, and I solved it within 24 hours without a lawyer, just by myself. I'm pretty pumped about it. So if you guys watched my live stream yesterday, I said I'm going to beat the fact checkers. I will be victorious. And I was talking about an old fact check from a month ago, right? I get off the live stream after saying that, and then I go to my Instagram and I'm completely disabled and demonetized from monetization permanently or something. Or maybe not permanently because I switched it, but you get what I'm saying. A new fact check came after I said I was going to beat the fact checkers, and I'm like, wow, what a coincidence. So I see what they're fact checking, and they're fact checking a video of me talking about Rochelle Walensky talking about monkeypox, and I brought up the mask mandates and the gym closures of 2020. Okay, I wasn't talking about new ones. I was talking about the old ones. But these stupid dummies, and I'm not trying to be rude because they did correct themselves, which I'm very happy about, but they published this article. It's all about me. It's in the lead stories, and it says, fact check, monkeypox is not going to bring back mask mandates. Monkeypox didn't close down gyms. And I'm thinking to myself, bro, I wasn't saying monkeypox closed gyms down. So they made a fake fact check and labeled it false after my last live stream and gave me a false rating and messed up my Instagram. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So, I did what I did. I Karened out. I hit up the journalist directly and I messaged her and told her she was lying. I messaged the appeal. I appealed it at Lead Stories. I went through their appeal process and I was very calm this time. Instead of being a dick, I said, listen, you're wrong. You're lying. I never said that monkeypox is bringing back gym closures. You're exaggerating and misinterpreting what I said. You get what I'm saying? I brought up the gym closures, but I wasn't talking about recently. And I gave them, this is funny, I gave them a liberal example so they could try to figure it out. Because I know liberals don't like Trump. I said it would be equivalent if I said, oh, Trump, why do you care so much about gay marriage? You should focus on your divorces. I see like liberals saying that all the time. If you say, oh, don't think about gay marriage, focus on your own divorces, it doesn't mean that the divorces are current. You get what I'm saying? Like, people say that all the time, and like, Trump's divorces are not today or in the future. So this dummy, heard my criticism of the CDC and was like, oh, he's suggesting it's happening now. Like, no, I'm not, dummy. So, anyway, I emailed them and I told them, since I understand it can be misconstrued, I'll delete my post on Instagram. And I'm not one to delete my stuff and back down, but I do, after watching, even though they were wrong, I get how it could be misinterpreted. And I'm like, listen, it's not, I do thousands of videos. That video is already up in a bunch of different places. I don't need that video. I told them, I'm like, listen, if you take down the fact check and you take down the check, I'll delete the video because I don't really care about it that much anyway. And they said, sure, we'll agree to take it down. So isn't that pretty crazy? I said yesterday on the live stream, I would beat the fact checkers on a different topic. I got fact checked after the live stream, and then I beat them within 24 hours, just like I said I was yesterday in a totally different form. So I'm pretty grateful for that. And the other fact check, I have a lot more work to do on it, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stand by my truth and, really pump through where they made a mistake and try to legally, peacefully, and accurately put pressure on them in a respectful manner. Be like, listen, you guys are wrong. I'm not backing down. Correct your error. So that was an interesting win, and I'm very grateful for it. We got a minute left, guys. I'm keeping this under 45 minutes, so any comments I'm going to put on the screen for a minute. Let's see. Someone said, how many politicians and elites belong to secret societies? I want to research that. I'm lazy. Someone especially do it. It's hard to find out how many politicians are part of secret societies because the sneaky ones, it's secret. They're not telling you. But there are some like Skull and Bones. There is pretty mainstream stuff you can find on certain politicians. And I think Yale, a lot of people who went to Yale are part of secret societies. But, I think the best secret societies are still secretive. But the old internet used to talk about Freemasons and all this stuff all the time. And that conversation has kind of been pushed to the back, because I don't think a lot of people are able to connect the dots because, like you said, it's secretive. But someone said, great work, Anomaly. Thank you. Appreciate you, Giovanna. God bless you guys. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. I'm going to cut this off because I want to keep it as brief as I can because I don't want to drag on forever. This was jam-packed with information. We got multiple articles, multiple stuff. I don't know the truth about what's going on. What do you think's going on with Kolomoisky, Zelensky, Ukraine? I gave you my opinion. I gave you some of the facts and some of the articles. And that's what it is. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. This has been the Dream Rare Podcast live video recording. Support, like, share, and I appreciate everything.